In this video, I'm going to break down why counting calories is a stupid approach to weight loss. Let's do this. Hey Keto Camper, Ben Azadi here, certified functional health practitioner, best-selling author, and here at Keto Camp we are on a mission to educate and inspire 1 billion people on planet Earth. This video is going to be controversial for a lot of people out there because we have a lot of fitness influencers and dietitians and nutritionists, a lot of people in the health space that are teaching this calories in versus calories out approach. In this video, I'm going to give you several reasons why that is such a stupid approach to health and weight loss. I mean, you see it in my shirt, stop counting calories. I want to start with this. A lot of what I teach goes against the conventional norm. It's outside of that conventional medical box. I teach something called the 180 approach, the 180-degree approach that Dr. Pompa, my coach and mentor, talks about a lot. And the analogy I like to give is for any of you Seinfeld fans out there, and I learned this from Dr. Jason Fung. For you Seinfeld fans out there, what I teach is something called the George Costanze effect. So if you ever watched that episode or the TV show Seinfeld back in the 90s, this was a popular sitcom, and there was a character on this show called George Costanze. And George Costanze was getting terrible results in his life. He was miserable, he was unhappy, he was unhealthy, he was broke, and he decided to do everything opposite of what he had been doing up until that point. And what happened to George Costanze? Everything in his life improved. His relationships, his finances. He was happier because he did everything opposite of what he had been doing up until that point. So what I teach and what I'm about to share with you on this video here is the exact opposite of what you've been taught. And doing it will get you better results. It's the George Costanze effect. I always tell people at my lectures, be careful when you follow the masses because usually the M is silence. When it comes to nutrition, when it comes to these diet wars, that's what they are out there. They are diet wars. You have people arguing about keto, veganism, paleo, should you fast, should you count your calories? It is a war out there and you're going to get 100 different answers from 100 different people. So how do you know? How do you decipher all this together? I'm going to break down how I've done it being in the health space for 11 years now and in the fitness space for 11 years. I've experimented and I've done a lot of things, a lot of different approaches, counting calories, dieting. I've done a lot of it. And I'm going to break down what I've learned and how this relates to counting calories. So when it comes to nutrition, here's an analogy that I got from Dr. Jason Fung. It's like somebody's car has broken down. They went to go start the car up and the engine is not starting up. So this person, let's call this person Mark. He goes to his friend and he says, hey, you know, my car didn't start. Do you have any advice for me? How could I get this car up and running? And Mark's friend says, oh, I've had that same problem before. What I had to do was put gas in my car and then it started to run. So therefore, that's the solution to your problem. Mark, you got to put gas in your car and it will start right up. And then another friend overhears this conversation and says, whoa, 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 that is ridiculous advice. I had that same issue. I put gas in my car. Nothing happened. I had to actually exchange the battery because the battery was dead. I replaced the battery, boom, the car started right up. Therefore, Mark, that is the solution to your problem. It is simply a replacement of your battery and problem will be solved. Now these two friends, they bicker, they go back and forth. It's the battery. No, it's the gas. It's the battery. It's the gas. You see what's happening here? This is the same thing that's happening when it comes to nutrition. You ask a friend and you get advice from a different friend, it's going to be completely different advice. They are both correct, but they are both wrong at the same time. They're correct in their solution to their specific problem, but they're wrong in not acknowledging that everybody is different and they have different problems for different solutions for those problems. It's the same thing with nutrition. There is no one diet for us all. There is no one approach for us all. So how does someone decipher all this information? Here's how I've done it over the years. Thesis, Antithesis, which is Antithesis, and then Synthesis. How does this all work? Over the years, I've experimented with veganism, paleo diet, counting calories, and now keto. I have put the pieces together. So I'll follow an approach, let's say vegan. I was a strict vegan for a year and a half, several years ago. And I got some results, but then the results stopped and I got out of that. But I extracted what worked and I kept that with me and disregarded what didn't work. Then I went and I did paleo, and then I did keto, and I did the same thing. Extracted what I found that worked for me, disregarded what didn't work for me. And then I had enough data to form my synthesis. That's the important message for you here. I want you to get enough data from all the videos I'm sharing, my podcast episodes, all the things you're studying, and then grab what you think works for you, experiment, and if it's working for you, you keep doing it, and you stop doing the things that are not working for you. When it comes to counting calories, I have seen, after working with thousands and thousands of clients, counting calories fails 99.99% of the time. It's a huge distraction to what really matters, and I'm gonna break all that down for you on this episode of the Keto Camp podcast. I wanna start with this. Dr. Jason Fung is brilliant at really dissecting this calories in versus calories out myth. And he explains proximate cause versus ultimate cause. What's the difference here? Well, when we're looking at calories in versus calories out, let's compare that to an airplane that's flying over the Atlantic Ocean and it ends up crashing into the ocean. If we're looking at the proximate cause of that airplane crash, we're gonna say, oh, it was too little lift and too much gravity, which ended up crashing that plane, which is not necessarily wrong. It was too much lift, or too little lift and too much gravity that made that plane crash. But if we're looking at that proximate cause, we're failing to acknowledge that, whoa, maybe it could have been pilot error. Maybe it could have been a malfunctioning engine. So if we're looking at the actual ultimate cause of that, we'll know a solution for it. Because if we're just looking at the proximate cause, we're gonna say, oh, just build lighter planes and bigger engines and that'll solve the problem. But what if the problem was pilot's error? Will that solve the problem? No, we wanna figure out what the ultimate cause is. Same thing with calories in versus calories out. When we're just looking at the proximate cause, we're gonna say, just eat less and move more, you'll get your results. But what if the ultimate cause was a dysfunctioning thyroid, or a cellular membrane inflammation, or mold exposure, or cavitations in the mouth? What if it's the hormones and the metabolism? Well, then the proximate cause doesn't matter. It's the ultimate cause that is the most important factor at the end of the day. So I hope this is starting to make sense for you, and I have a lot more data and comparisons and analogy for you that I'm going to give on this episode of the Keto Camp podcast. Because if you're just telling people, we have these personal trainers, we have these nutritionists, we have these dietitians and doctors, and so many people in the nutrition space that are teaching this, calories in versus calories out. That's so ridiculous in my eyes, because that's like showing up to a conference where Bill Gates is lecturing on how to become wealthy, how to make a whole bunch of money and become financially free. And somebody in the audience is asking Bill Gates a question. Hey, Bill, I have a question for you. And Bill picks on this gentleman and says, yeah, sure, what's your question? And the gentleman says, Bill Gates, could you please let us know, how are you so rich? And Bill Gates thinks for a second and he says, oh, I'm rich because I spend less than I earn. And then he just continues on with his lecture. That's ridiculous, because he would be laughed out of that auditorium. It's the same thing with teaching calories in versus calories out. It's not enough data. It's ridiculous once you understand the human body. The bottom line is this: there's nobody who's taken seriously in the health space who teaches calories in versus calories out. It's a big distraction. When you look at the human body, there is no mechanism, there is no receptor sites in the human body that counts calories. So why are we counting calories? We know this: the human body is not a bank account. The human body is not a calculator. The human body is not a math equation. Okay, the human body is a complex chemistry lab, and we need to start treating it as such. So this bears to ask the question of, why are so many nutritionists and dietitians, who are credible people who are trying to do the right thing, still teaching this calories in, calories out approach? I'm gonna explain why they do it first. Well, actually, I'm gonna explain this first. I'm gonna explain their approach and then why they're teaching this to their clients. So a standard, conventional nutritionist and dietitian, they're going to work with their client this way. Let's say Sandra. I'm gonna just give a comparison of a woman named Sandra, and if your name is Sandra, I'm not talking about you. Sandra wants to lose about 30 pounds of extra weight she's been carrying around, and she's frustrated with that. So she hires a dietitian to teach her to lose that weight. She shows up to the consultation and the dietitian says, okay, we got this. Let's just calculate your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate, by the way, is your metabolism, the amount of calories you're burning just to sustain life, the amount of calories you burn just laying on the couch all day. This is what your metabolism burns each day. And for mathematical simplicity here, let's say they calculate Sandra's calories to be 2,000 calories per day is her basal metabolic rate. Next, they're going to calculate her total daily energy expenditure, aka her TDEE. You might have had a personal trainer do this with you. I used to do it for so many years. So that's the amount of calories Sandra is burning with her activity levels with her basal metabolic rate. Let's say she's not very active and she has a 9-to-5 job and they say, oh, your activity levels are low. You burn about 3,000 calories a day with your total daily energy expenditure. Next thing they're going to do is say, now let's fill out a food log and see how many calories you're eating in a day. And they determine that she's eating about 4,000 calories a day, which explains why she's been gaining weight, because her calories burned is 3,000 and her calories she's eating each day is 4,000. So they're gonna say, we got this, Sandra. Here's the math we're gonna do. We're gonna drop your calories every single day by 500. And every time you have a 3,500 calorie deficit, boom, that's 1 pound of weight loss. And we'll continue doing this until we get to your desired weight. And it makes sense. 3,500 calories, 1 pound of weight loss, you keep going, you'll start to lose weight. And Sandra follows this to the T. She's tracking every single calorie, a piece of gum in her mouth, a Skittle she had from her friend, but as long as it fits her macros and her calories, it's all good. As long as she doesn't go over that upper limit, it's all good, right? So she's having small portion control meals throughout the day, and she's starting to lose the weight. And she's thinking, oh, that Ben Azadi, he's an idiot. Keto camp, what are they talking about? Calories do matter. I'm losing weight. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. What happens when she's 3 months in? Now Sandra has stopped losing weight. And she's starting to gain weight. But not only that, she's hungry all the time, she's cold all the time, and she's irritable. She feels miserable. So she goes back to this dietitian and she says, hey, I hit a plateau and I don't feel so good. What should we do here? So the dietitian says, let's cut your calories even more. And let's have you exercise an extra couple hours each week. And then she gets a bump in her weight loss again. But then a month later, she stalls and she gains the weight. Do you see where I'm going with this? When we focus on calories, you're only going to get short-term results and you will never get long-term results. It results in a roller coaster, yo-yo dieting that I've experienced myself and I've seen so many clients experience, and you might be going through this right now or you might have done it in the past. Why are nutritionists and dietitians promoting this? Here's an alarming fact for you, and it's going to be a controversial statement, but 40% of the funding for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics comes from big food companies, one of them being Coca-Cola. What's the link with Coca-Cola? Well, who came up with this energy expenditure hypothesis, which is really just more of a deception? Who came up with it? Coca-Cola did. They were losing sales back in the 1990s, and they said, hey, let's come up with this energy expenditure hypothesis and say, hey, you could still have your 140-ounce can of Coke as long as you burn it off with exercise. They came up with this nonsense. They're teaching it to nutritionists and dietitians, and we are not getting results because of it. There's a lot of corruption behind the scenes. I don't want you to believe everything I'm saying here. I want you to have the data to understand what's going on and then do some research. Next example I'm going to share with you is The Biggest Loser. How many of you have seen that show several years ago? It was a popular TV show in America. What they did, they had all these morbidly obese contestants and they put them through a rigorous schedule of exercising more, eating less. And there was actually a study done on 14 contestants of the show, The Biggest Loser, who after 30 weeks of filming dropped an average of weight of 127 pounds each. That's incredible. And on top of it all, their body fat dropped on average from 49% to 28%, which is also incredible. But guess what? They were losing body fat, which is incredible. But they did a study on these Biggest Loser contestants. And they ran this study 6 years following the show. And it turns out that 13 out of the 14 had regained their weight. That's a 93% failure rate. Why do you think there's never a reunion show for The Biggest Loser? They all gain the weight back. And they even have to sign clauses that say, we will not talk about this in public. Because counting calories never works long term, only short term. Here's another example for you. I've started working with clients before, and I've had them eat more and they've lost weight because we just changed the quality of the food they were eating. So they ate more calories. Technically, they were eating more calories, but they changed the quality of those calories and they lost weight because they dropped inflammation. And when you drop inflammation specifically around your cells, then your fat-burning hormones can get into the cells and do its job. I've also had clients just get an extra hour of sleep each night without changing anything with their diet, and they lost weight because that sleep is where your fat-burning hormones also gets into the cells and helps you burn fat, specifically during delta stage 4 sleep. The bottom line is this: food is not just about calories. Food is information. When we eat food, every bite signals a metabolic response. We can choose to eat high-quality foods that elicit a healthy metabolic response, or we can choose to eat poor-quality foods that elicit a negative metabolic response. The choice is yours. When we look at 500 calories of a kale salmon salad versus 500 calories of gummy bears, what's going to happen between those two? Well, they're not going to have the same results. They're not going to have the same metabolic response. When you're eating those calories from kale salmon salad, you're going to have better energy levels and you're going to lose weight. When you're eating those calories from gummy bears, you're going to have wonky hormones and up and down energy levels, and you're probably going to gain weight. It's time that we stop focusing on the quantity of calories and we start focusing on the quality of those calories. I think calories matter. Yes, I do. I am not arguing that, but I don't think calories are important. What's more important is the hormones, the metabolism, and what's going on in this beautiful body that we have, which is a miracle creation that we are living in, this meat suit that some people call. One of my favorite quotes comes from Albert Einstein. He said, "Intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them." Intellectuals are conventional approaches to weight loss. They are just putting band-aids. It's like that whack-a-mole game at the arcade. You're not going to get the results you want. Geniuses like you and I, we prevent the problems. We're focusing on quality, not quantity. Eric Hoffer said a brilliant quote, and I'm going to close with this: "In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with the world that no longer exists." I encourage you to dig a little deeper based off of what I shared with you today. If you found this video to be useful here on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the Keto Camp YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. We release 5 brand new videos every single week on this channel. And if you want to learn more about how I teach keto, how I teach fasting, and how to get healthy to lose weight, not the other way around, then I encourage you to head over to www.ketocamp.academy.com. Become a member today. For about $1 a day, you'll get 100+ videos about all the things I talk about. You'll get health coaching from me. You'll get over $600 worth of meal plans, and you get so much more. You get community, and I want to teach you how to get results that stick. That's ketocampacademy.com to learn more. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. You'll see me on the next one.